In this tutorial, I want to demonstrate how Webiny's Headless CMS can interact with third-party services. In particular, here we're going to use the OpenAI. What we're going to be doing is we're going to have a simple content model where we're going to have some content that we type in, and then based on the content we've put in our form, we want to grab that content, send it to OpenAI, and ask OpenAI to recommend an SEO-friendly page title, description, and up to 5 keywords. Once OpenAI sends back the response, we want to then take it and pre-populate specific fields inside our content model with that response. But of course, we want to still allow the user to have the capability to make changes to that before saving. To help you follow along this tutorial, you can find the full tutorial on our documentation portal. So if you go to the Headless CMS section and under Artificial Intelligence, there's the Smart SEO article, which is the one we'll be using to build our extension. There is one pre-requirement you're going to need for this tutorial, and that is you're going to need to open an account on OpenAI. And from there, you're going to need to access the platform's dashboard where you will be able to create an API key, which you'll need to paste inside Webiny's env file. I will cover that in the tutorial, but before we start the tutorial, I recommend you go to OpenAI, so platform.openai.com, and there under API keys, you can create a new API key. And once you created the key, you can copy paste it into a README file for now. Just keep it there for a while before we paste it into Webiny. To get started, we'll install the Smart SEO OpenAI extension. Just copy paste this command, and in our terminal, let's just make sure we don't have any watch commands running. We can paste it, and that's going to first download the extension, then import it into our project. There we go. So now you can find the extension under Extensions, Smart SEO OpenAI. This extension has two parts. There's a part on the API side, and there's a part on the admin side. Now that the extension is installed, we need to take care of that pre-requirement I mentioned earlier. So in the root of our project, there's a .env file. If we open the file, at the bottom of that file in our project, we need to add a new variable called Webiny API OpenAI API key. The first part of the name, Webiny API, tells to Webiny that this variable should only be available on the API side, so your Lambda functions will have access to it. And then after that, we define whatever name of the environment variable we want to have. And lastly, we want to paste the OpenAI API key. After we've done that, we're good to save the file. Okay, now that we saved our file, we get to deploy the API. So yarn Webiny deploy API env dev. We'll need to deploy the API so that the new variable kicks in and that the new API functions are available. As for the changes to the admin side, we will use a watch command to see those changes. Okay, let's wait for the API deployment to finish. Great, the deployment has finished. Now, in the other window, we can run a watch command, yarn Webiny watch admin env dev, and let's start the watch. Okay, now we're inside our instance. In there, we have the article Smart SEO content model. If you open that one, so let's create a new article, and for that, let's open a news portal. Let's say BBC Sports, and let's paste some sort of an article. Let's put that into here. Get some content. Okay. Based on that, you'll see also this new button. We'll go over the details of how this button was added in a second. But essentially, as I mentioned in the beginning of the tutorial, the point here is that we have a content field that into which we type in some content. That content that gets sent to OpenAI. OpenAI analyzes it and returns back to us an SEO title, description, and several meta tags based on that content that we sent. So let's see how this works. If we click the button, there we go. OpenAI gave us a title, gave us a description, and a couple of SEO friendly keywords. And of course, we can edit this, change this to our needs. But the point is that this exercise shows us how we can have AI integrations with Webiny to help content editors save some time on their work, but still be fully in control. In the second part of this video, we'll go over the details of how all of this works. But as I mentioned, all of that is already explained inside this tutorial here. So make sure you go back after the video and just explore a bit more in depth of all the mechanics that are involved here. Let's explore the code that came with our extension. So if we open the extensions folder, in there we have this Smart SEO OpenAI, and in there, let's start with the API side. Okay, so here we see we have two things going on. Let's open the article file, and in this file we are introducing a new content model group called Smart SEO, which is that group in the main menu under which we're adding the article Smart SEO content model. The content model itself has the content field, so the field ID is one thing to pay attention to here, and then we have the SEO title, SEO description, and SEO meta tags. And in the other folder, in the other file, this is where we're introducing a new GraphQL query to our API. First of all, we're fetching the OpenAPI key, which is the environment variable we defined. The thing is that you can define a client-side variable. All of this can actually work on the client side, but we move this to the API side purely because we don't want to publicly expose our key. Second thing that we have here is the official library from OpenAI, which we initiate here and pass the API key. Then in this part here, we're actually expanding our Headless CMS GraphQL schema. First, we're introducing a type that has a title, description, keywords, attributes. This is the type for the response for our query. Then we have an input that just has content string. This is basically the definition of the input for the query, and it only takes the content attribute. And finally, we have our query, which is called the generate SEO. It has an input of the one that we defined here and returns this as a response. And finally, we have the logic that we defined under resolve as query. See, these two names match. We're taking our input. From the input, we're extracting our content, which is the one that we defined here. And we're sending a prompt to OpenAI, where we just ask it that based on the provided content, it should return back a JSON object with title, description, and keywords as an array. We then check our response. Sometimes the response might not be properly formatted, or it might not properly be, or we might not get a response due to some issues with API, whatever. But essentially, we're doing some error checking here. And if everything is valid, we parse the response from OpenAI and return the title, description, and keywords back to the client. And that's all that's happening on the API side. So we have the definition of our content model and content model group, as well as the query that generates the SEO tags for us. Let's now look at the admin side of things. So here we got a few more files. If we open the index as an entry point, we'll see we're doing some decoration to our content entry form, and then adding a few more items to the editor itself. If we open decorate content entry form, essentially this is the same plugin that we used when we wanted to modify the layout of the form. This allows us to grab the form element and then attach or manipulate that form element. So here we're attaching a field tracker, which is a context around our form. In the field tracker, what we're doing in short is attaching a context around the fields inside our form, and that context allows us to fetch the fields as well as just get the field as an object and then access functions like set value, get value, and so on. This is what this field tracker utility does. Besides that, we then have the SEO, smart SEO file, as well as decorate content entry form bind. Let's open the smart SEO. In the smart SEO, let's go to the very bottom. This is what we're exporting. We're adding a button action before the existing action that's called save. So in Webiny, when you add buttons, you usually have the ability to define where that button is located on the screen based on some existing elements on the screen. Here we're saying, hey, our new button is going to be added before the existing save button, right? And here we're defining that button. So if you look at the render, we're adding a secondary button that on click fires off the ask ChatGPT function, and it's adding a icon, and this is the button label. So we look at the ask ChatGPT function. What this does is it fires off that GraphQL query that we've saw on the API side, and it sends the content by extracting the rich text HTML. But the important bit is that we're extracting the rich text HTML by taking the fields property. So this property is basically a list of all the fields inside our form that we're using the use field tracker that we just showed to actually get access to our form and all of its fields. So here we have all of our fields, and then based on that, we got this small little utility function that just iterates through all the fields and looks for any field type that's its type is rich text. And based on that, because Webiny provides rich text editor based on the lexical rich text editor, we need to create this transformer function, which is provided out of the box. To be that transformer function, what it does is when you get the value of a rich text editor, it is in lexical JSON format, which is specific to lexical. Here what we want to do is transform that into HTML, which other systems understand. So essentially here we're going to get HTML from all of the rich text fields inside our content model. If we want to add more rich text fields to our content model, this is going to extract them. If we want to only have a specific field, then we can field.id. We can filter fields based on IDs, not just their types and so on. Essentially, content is going to contain that HTML extracted out of all the rich text fields. And we're going to wait for the response, do some error checking. If our response is valid, what we're going to do is populate the title, description, keywords. The populate functions are rather simple. Essentially, we're looking for a field, and based on the field, we are adding the value, pre-populating that value that we got out of the response. And at the end, we just show a snack bar of the result. And that's pretty much what's going on in here. All right, so hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial where we demonstrated how you can enrich Webiny with AI capabilities, how you can do integrations with third-party AI providers, how you can send prompts, how you can extract data from Webiny content model, how you can pre-populate the data based on responses coming from third parties. This tutorial, again, builds a foundation for a lot of other things. For example, let's say you want to show an autocomplete of all of the products from a PIM system that's hosted somewhere else inside your Headless CMS. Let's say if you want to pull the list of customers coming from a third-party CRM into Webiny. The principles laid out in here will give you a sense how to achieve all of that. All right, thank you for your time on this one.